country for pharmacare. All we're asking in this motion is that in 1 year we have that meeting. It's time for action. Canadians have waited long enough. It's time to start the conversation.
The honourable member will have 5 minutes for questions and comments after a question period. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député de
The honourable member from Montcalm. Victory, Madam Speaker, victory. Despite the Liberal government's support and the support of the Harper government before that, despite the National Energy Board's laxity, Energy East will not come through where we live. This is a victory for citizens, a victory for Quebecers who are standing up for themselves. The Energy East saga shows that Quebec can never count on federal members to defend their interests. It shows that despite its sunny rhetoric, Canada is an oil-producing country that's prepared to endanger our lands, lakes, and rivers in order to sell its dirty oil. And yes, it showed that Quebec and Canada are two distinct countries with different values and different ways of doing things. The end of Energy East is a victory for those who actually think long-term and actually care about future generations. It's also a victory for the Bloc, which fought against this project for before and during and after the elections. It's a victory for Quebec and a great day for the planet. The honourable member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Madam Speaker, this summer, I continued to travel around my riding in order to meet with and listen to my constituents. I kicked off the summer with 40 new Canadians who were taking their oath of citizenship on Canada Day. I was also very happy to participate in the federal government's and the Quebec government's announcement of an investment of over $30.4 million to support 29 public transportation projects in Laval. I also met with several organizations who received funding from the Canada Summer Jobs Program and who are making a difference in my community. It was a privilege to meet with young workers in my riding and their employers. Madam Speaker, my greatest privilege is still representing my constituents. I will always be grateful to them, and I will continue to represent them with great pride. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Peace River Westall.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to draw attention to the Moose Hide campaign. 6 years ago, Paul Lacerte, a member of the Caribou clan, founded the Moose Hide campaign while hunting with his daughter Raven along the Highway of Tears. As they hunted moose, they were both touched by the violence that had happened all around them, and they decided to use the moose they hunted for the cause. After tanning the hide and cutting it into squares, they began giving squares to other men and encouraging men to stand against violence. Since then, the campaign has handed out 500,000 squares of moose hide. Today, the Moose Hide campaign is gathered in Ottawa, where men will fast together in support of ending violence against women and talking about what it means to be a man. Mr. Speaker, I join these men and women today and thousands across Canada in wearing this Moose Hide to signify our commitment to honour, respect and protect women and children in our lives and work together with other men to end violence against women and children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize another significant promise fulfilled by our government. We have heard loud and clear from Canadians about the significant hardship that they have faced on their journey to citizenship due to unnecessary barriers created by the previous government. Yesterday, I was proud to join my colleagues from Brampton and the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship in Brampton to announce that effective October the 11th, changes will be implemented to ease barriers for future Canadians on their quest to citizenship. The physical presence requirement for citizenship will be reduced to 3 out of 5 years, and the age range for knowledge and language requirements will be returned to 18 to 54 years. These changes, Mr. Speaker, along with those previously announced in Bill C-6, will help residents of Brampton West and across Canada reunite with their families, contribute to our society, and reaffirm that a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, before having the honour of representing my constituents in this House, I had the privilege of being a teacher for 25 years. I'm pleased to say that I didn't completely leave the profession behind because I still use some of the skills that I acquired there every day. So allow me to acknowledge and celebrate World Teachers Day by thanking teachers for their commitment to our young people. Their attention, commitment, and actions often speak louder than words, and they help these future leaders develop their critical thinking and develop their sense of agency. Teaching can be a challenging and often thankless job, so standing up to thank them once a year is the least that we can do, I think. If an apple doesn't seem like the right gift, maybe you can take a few minutes to write a heartfelt email to the teachers who work with our kids every day. To my former and current colleagues, you have my gratitude.
Député de...
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to mark the 200th anniversary of the birth of Marie-Louise Angélique Clara. In my riding, we have a school, a hospital, and a foundation named after her. Born in France in 1817, Sister Marie Clara brought a passion for education and religion with her when she came to Canada. The Marie Clarac School has 1,300 students, and the hospital now offers palliative care to patients. She was the founder of the St. Mary's Sisters of Charity congregation, which serves patients in 12 countries on 3 continents. I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, to recognize the work of the congregation members who carry on Sister Marie Clara's work. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Yellowhead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the heroes who risked their lives to save strangers and the blood donors who waited for hours to help the wounded when word went out there was shooting in Las Vegas this past weekend. This tragedy has impacted Canadians far and wide, including communities of Maple Ridge, British Columbia, Okotoks, Alberta, and Valley View, Alberta. Mr. Speaker, I have learned that a young resident of Jasper in my riding of Yellowhead was a victim of this senseless crime. Whether the recent terrorist attacks in Edmonton or the violence in Las Vegas, Albertans and all Canadians will not be divided. We will stand together as a nation, support each other, and grieve together. I want to offer my sincere condolences to all the families impacted by this tragedy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the tremendous work of our troops overseas in protecting freedom and maintaining the security, sovereignty, and stability of our homeland and that of our allies. At the start of the session, I had the honor of traveling with the Defence Committee to Belgium, Latvia, and Ukraine, where we met with our military personnel stationed in these locations. What has perhaps been impressed upon me the most, Mr. Speaker, is that Canada's participation in Operations Unifier and Reassurance has encouraged other nations to get involved. Witnessing the professionalism of our troops and the utmost respect they receive while being deployed in these locations truly was humbling and instilled within me an immense sense of pride to be Canadian. Mr. Speaker, our troops are our real nation builders. Us politicians will come and go, but our brave men and women promoting Canadian values throughout the world are what truly give Canada the long-lasting reputation as a global leader. As we enjoy our freedom, let us never forget the troops who sacrificed to make it possible. Thank you for serving Canada so selflessly.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, opioid-related overdoses have claimed almost 800 lives in BC so far this year, devastating families and communities throughout our province. These numbers would have no doubt been higher had it not been for our first responders who are working on the ground to save countless Canadian lives. This summer, I had the opportunity to observe firsthand the work of Langley City firefighters, BC paramedics in the downtown east side, the Langley and Surrey RCMP, and Surrey Fire Chief Len Garris, whose crew alone reversed 240 opioid overdoses in 2016. We have a lot of work ahead to overcome the opioid crisis in Canada. In the meantime, I'd like to recognize the work of first responders in Canada who are on the front lines of this crisis, doing their best, day after day and hour after hour, to save lives, including those of society's most vulnerable. Thank you, first responders.
L'honorable député de
The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, 2017 is a particularly significant year for Rivière-du-Loup, which is celebrating several anniversaries this year. The famous bell tower at City Hall has watched over our citizens for over 100 years. The Princess Theatre downtown remains a cultural and architectural gem, especially now as it hosts the Vue dans la Tête Film Festival. Then there's L'Harmonie, which continues to host recitals that benefit local organizations. Many musicians have gotten their start there. Finally, the world-renowned Sœurs de l'Enfant Jésus de Chauffaille, located on the banks of the St. Lawrence River, set up their provincial location that now houses Les Sœurs Clarisses. To everyone who has helped these institutions flourish and to become a part of our history, thank you. And happy anniversary to everyone.
député de Brossard-Saint-Lambert.
The Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, in the week of October 15th, we celebrate cooperatives. Co-op Week celebrates the members of Canadian cooperatives, and it coincides with International Savings and Credit Unions Day, which is the third Thursday in October every year.
The House recognized the importance of cooperatives by unanimously adopting my motion to promote and support Canada's cooperatives. The purpose of motion M100 is to provide for the development and implementation of a strategy enhancing this sector so important for our economic growth. It was with great emotion and pride that I received unanimous support of my colleagues for this motion, inspired by the outstanding work of my former colleague, the Honourable Mauriel Bélanger. I firmly believe that cooperatives also play an important role in the betterment of our communities.
Cooperatives can help support the government's priorities, including the Inclusive Innovation Program, social economy, and the transition to a low-carbon economy. Happy Co-op Week. Thank you.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for La Salle-et-Marne-Verdun. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to mention two very important priorities for me, two aspects of public life that push me to commit to serving the people around me. First of all, today is the second annual Hill Day for citizens of my riding, La Salle-et-Marne-Verdun. Welcome. Then, Mr. Speaker, I had the honor of spending 25 years of my life working with brilliant young minds at McGill University. Over the years, as a teacher, I had the rare opportunity to support young adults in their quest for knowledge and a better understanding of the world.
Teachers, Mr. Speaker, in La Salle and Marne-Verdun at many levels, and I can attest their dedication, their intellect, and their pedagogical creativity. They inspire, as good teachers do. On cette journée,
to mark Hill Day for my riding, and to mark World Teachers Day, I'd like to thank you for helping keep me humble and committed. Thank you.
député, honourable member.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, this morning in Cobourg, Ontario, there was a small but poignant ceremony alongside the Highway of Heroes. A bridge on the highway was named in honour of Captain Nicola Goddard, who gave her life serving Canada and Afghanistan in 2006. Nicknamed Care Bear by some, or Nick by her comrades, Nicola was destined to serve in the uniform of the Canadian Armed Forces and also as a scout leader mentoring young people. She grew up across this great country before joining the military, graduating from Royal Military College, and serving with the RCHA. Sadly, Nicola was our 16th casualty in the Afghanistan War, and she was the first female Canadian soldier to die in combat. Her legacy lives across this great country, and now a part of our Highway of Heroes bears her name. I want to thank the True Patriot Love Foundation, John Carswell and Canso Funds, and especially her family and friends for making sure we preserve the memory of this extraordinary Canadian.
Honourable member for Burnaby North Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to welcome members of the Hotel Association of Canada to Ottawa. Hotels welcome guests to Canada from around the world. In the Vancouver area alone, hotels like the Holiday Inn in North Vancouver employ over 12,000 individuals, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this year, the Minister of Small Business and Tourism announced Canada's new tourism vision. This ambitious plan will grow the sector and create even more jobs and grow the middle class. Now, let's not forget that 2018 is the year of Canada-China tourism. I know that in my riding of Burnaby North Seymour, many members of our community are looking forward to welcoming family and friends who will be visiting Canada for their very first time. We are proud of our hotel workers who are, each in themselves, the front desk of our nation. With their passion and commitment, they define what Canadian hospitality is all about, and I am rising today to acknowledge their work and thank them for their service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of two groups of women from my riding, the Centre Avec des Ailes in Saint-Gabriel-de-Brandon and the L'Héritage Women's Centre in Louisville. They worked very hard to be able to come and visit Parliament and learn more about the role of a member in the House of Commons. October 3rd was the National Day for Women's Centres. I think that we need to reaffirm the importance of these women's centres in our communities, and we need to encourage the creation of more of them. These organizations provide a safe, accessible space for all women, and they're open to diversity. They provide assistance, support, and education. These groups are also places that women can come to gather and think about feminist thoughts. These groups also help women feel less isolated and respect women's individual and collective rights. To conclude, I'd like to thank Stéphanie Lavallée and Linda Provençal, who worked very hard, and their hard work allowed all these women to be here today on the Hill. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Confederation.
Mr. Speaker, I have a letter from a constituent in Calgary, Dr. Shannon Rabuka, and she wrote, "If I was angry before, now I am furious. When meeting recently to discuss possible tax scenarios if the Liberal tax changes are implemented, it was suggested that my family consider an individual pension plan. I was absolutely dumbfounded when one of the candidate products was offered by Morneau Chappelle. When I looked into it further, it seemed as though Morneau Chappelle was one of the largest vendors of these plans. It appears as though the Finance Minister stands to directly benefit from the proposed changes to our country's tax law. I am not averse to a comprehensive overhaul of tax law to make the system more fair, even if that means that my husband and I pay more tax. However, it is really starting to look as though fairness does not apply to the Finance Minister himself. Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister's company will benefit from these changes while small businesses will suffer. It doesn't look fair because it's not."
There you go. The Honourable Member for Niagara Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today begins the 5th annual Moose Hide campaign, a campaign that urges all men to speak out against violence towards Indigenous and non-Indigenous women and children. 5 years ago, an Indigenous man named Paul Lacerte was hunting moose with his daughter along the Highway of Tears in British Columbia, where far too many Indigenous women and children have gone missing or been found murdered. At that moment, Paul thought to engage men in a fight to end violence against women and children by using moose hide as a symbol of commitment to honor and respect women and children. Now, more than 500,000 squares of moose hide have been distributed across our great nation. I invite all Canadians to support the Moose Hide campaign by proudly wearing a moose hide square, promoting gender equality and healthy relationships, and speaking out against gender-based violence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Milton.
This morning, thousands of men and women who rely upon our energy sector for well-paying Canadian jobs got the news that they've been dreading. Today's decision to cancel the Energy East pipeline is a direct result of 2 years of political interference by the Liberal Party. Yes. Failure is the only word that comes to mind. When will the Prime Minister recognize that his disastrous economic and energy policies are hurting Canadians and our economy?
Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, TransCanada made a business decision based on market proposed the Energy East pipeline, oil was up around $90 a barrel, and the Conservative government had been unable to approve any new pipelines. Since then, Mr. Speaker, oil is at around half that price, and we've approved 3 new pipelines, creating jobs for more than 31,000 Canadians in the energy industry. We will continue to stay focused on growing the economy and creating good jobs while protecting the environment right across the country.
The honourable member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is dead wrong. The business decision was to invest $1 billion to start the process. The decision to not go ahead is a regulatory decision because of the double standard that this government is imposing upon Canadian projects. Mr. Speaker, they have cost 15,000 Canadians a job, and they have hurt our economy to the tune of $50 billion. The Liberals are putting the interests of Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and Algeria before Canadian jobs. What does the Prime Minister have to say?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that the market conditions have changed fundamentally since Energy East pipeline was first proposed. Oil was up around $90 a barrel, and that Conservative government were unable to get any pipelines approved while they were in government. The fact is, since then, oil prices have dropped by half, and we have approved 3 different pipelines to get our oil resources, including to new markets. The fact is, we are continuing to stand up for Canadian jobs while we defend the environment, and the Conservatives are again just playing politics.
Order. The honourable member for Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, obviously the Prime Minister doesn't realize that he is accountable for this dysfunctional regulatory process that they put in place. Mr. Speaker, 2 days ago, all the Atlantic MPs except for one voted against having a longer process for consultation on tax hikes to fishers, to farmers, and to local businesses. All but one. Mr. Speaker, with this morning's announcement, the Atlantic Canadians are forced with another economic blow. This is what I want to know. These are important sectors. They are vital to the East Coast economy. When will the Liberals stop stifling opportunity and stop taking us...
The right honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government is proud of the Atlantic growth strategy that we've established with the premiers of the Atlantic provinces to invest in growth, in innovation, in immigration, and opportunities for the Atlantic provinces to thrive and succeed. After 10 long years of being ignored by the previous government, we are proud of our strong voices from Atlantic Canada that stand up every day to create good jobs and a good future for all Atlantic Canadians and all Canadians.
The honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's a very sad day. A sad day for Canada, for Quebec, and all Canadian provinces. The abandonment of the Energy East pipeline by TransCanada is a result of Liberal decisions. They changed the environmental rules and destabilized an important project, a project representing $15 billion in investments that would have allowed many people in Quebec to build it during construction. And who would have been happy? And who's happy now? In fact, oil-producing countries, Venezuela, Algeria, and others. The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know full well that conditions have changed since TransCanada proposed the Energy East proposal. Oil was at $90 a barrel, and now it's worth half that. The Conservatives were unable to get pipelines approved. We have approved 3. Conditions have changed, where we continue to defend good jobs, to protect the environment, what the previous Conservative government was unable to do. The honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister know that conditions change, but he's responsible for those changes? It's because of him that it's a lot more difficult for entrepreneurs to undertake projects. It's a double standard, Mr. Speaker, because for him it's clear. It's a lot more severe or strict for oil producers here. In Quebec, we have 2 refineries that buy and sell $10 billion worth of foreign oil. That's billions of dollars that are being sent elsewhere when they could have come from here. Why has the government simply scrapped Canadian oil? Mr. Speaker, Canadians know full well that for 10 years the previous Conservative government was unable to approve oil pipeline products in the energy sector, and at the same time it didn't do anything for the environment either. Nothing to protect us for the future. Our government has approved some projects, but at the same time we protected the environment by putting in place a price, a Canada-wide price for carbon, by going ahead with environmental protection. That is what Canadians expect us to do, and that is what we have done. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. In a report today, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has shown that Liberal government health transfers, like Stephen Harper's, are insufficient. They don't meet the province's needs. This is exactly what the provinces have been telling us. They've been faced with significant budget pressures because of the aging population. Until the federal government sums up the courage to do its fair share, the provinces won't be able to improve the healthcare system. When will the Prime Minister respect his promise to adequately fund healthcare? Monsieur. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government is very proud to have negotiated health agreements with the provinces for the years to come. We have created historic levels of investment in mental health because we acknowledge that it is a real need. We've also made historic investments in home care, for example, to help our seniors, to help the most vulnerable. Our government is very proud of having worked with the provinces in order to deliver for Canadians, and we will continue to deliver a healthcare system for Canadians, which is there for all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques.
This is a parliamentary budget officer, and the PBO predicts also that seniors will become even more dependent on government services in the years to come. The amount that seniors will need from these services is projected to double. This is at a time when more than 250,000 seniors already live below the poverty level. So far, Liberals have no plan to help seniors. In fact, yesterday the Prime Minister mocked the NDP for calling for a national strategy. So when will the Liberals finally get serious about lifting seniors out of poverty?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, I pointed out that while the NDP were talking, we were delivering. We delivered an increase by 10% to the guaranteed income supplement for our most vulnerable seniors. That's $1,000 more in the pockets of seniors who really need it. We're moving forward on a national housing strategy to ensure that our most vulnerable seniors will have security and stability in where they live. We've moved forward on home care with historic investments with the provinces that will make sure that we're giving our seniors the support they need. We've moved forward on a historic strengthening of the Canada Pension Plan that's going to ensure that our seniors of today and our seniors of tomorrow have the support they need.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet.
We now know that public officials were raising major concerns about the implementation of the Phoenix payroll system. But instead of listening to these concerns, the government gave millions of dollars to two massive corporations who were the same companies who were selling Phoenix in the first place. And what did we get? A pay system that does not pay employees. When Canadians buy a product that doesn't work, they go back to the store and ask for a refund. So my question is simple: where is our refund?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take very seriously the situation with the Phoenix pay system. That's why we're working extremely hard with the public servants, with the public sector unions across government to ensure that we deliver a pay system that works for Canadians, that pays them on time and appropriately. This is something that we continue to work on diligently, and it's something that we know Canadians expect of us.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. It's always someone else's fault. The Liberals have never explained why they rushed the implementation of the Phoenix system. They're the ones who did it, not the Conservatives. They are the ones who pushed the start button. Now we've learned that the government paid out millions of dollars to PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM to implement Phoenix. And who was behind the bid for the Phoenix system? PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM. So my question is simple. Why did the Liberals ignore the advice of their own employees, who had warned them of the impending fiasco? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it is unacceptable for workers in the public service not to be paid adequately and on time. That is why we are taking our responsibilities so seriously in this regard, and we are working diligently to fix and remedy this situation. We are not making any excuses. We are working hard, and we will continue to work very hard with the public service, with the government, and with the unions in the public service in order to resolve this problem once and for all.
For Carleton.
Documents in my hands, which I've obtained, show the finance minister's billion-dollar company, Morneau Shepell, has registered its subsidiary in Barbados, which Oxfam lists as one of the 15 top tax havens in the world. Because of a Canada-Barbados tax treaty, companies pay virtually no tax at all on profits they ship back to Canada. The finance minister's plan to target rich tax evaders goes after family farms and local businesses, but does nothing about tax havens like Barbados. Why?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is fully committed to fighting tax evasion and avoidance. In our first two budgets, we invested over $1 billion, which has enabled us, Mr. Speaker, to recover almost $25 billion. There were 670 cases transferred to criminal investigation, 268 warrants conducted, and 78 convictions. Listen to me carefully. Canadians expect nothing less from us.
Honorable order. Order. The honourable member for Carleton.
According to CBC, quote, part of the draw is Barbados' corporate tax rate of between 1 and 2.5%. And once that modest amount is paid, thanks to the 1980 tax treaty, any leftover profits earned at a subsidiary based or linked to there can be brought back to Canada tax-free. Wow. Yet when the finance minister launched his crusade to target tax cheats, he only went after plumbers and pizza shop owners and farmers, but did nothing about this Barbados loophole. Why?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, as I just mentioned, our government has fully committed to fighting tax avoidance and abusive tax evasion, what the government opposite, the Conservative government, didn't do over the past 10 years, Mr. Speaker. We are achieving results. $26 billion we're on the right track to recovering, Mr. Speaker. In addition, cases transferred to the criminal investigations, warrants, convictions. As I said, Mr. Speaker, the trap is closing, and we're going to continue our work.
You should talk to the finance minister about that, because his billion-dollar family businesses has a certificate of registration in the Barbados. Yet, on the very day that the minister rolled out his tax increase on local businesses, he was asked about that, the Barbados Treaty, and he said, but we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Why did he forget to mention that the baby in question was a Morneau Shepell subsidiary?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly committed to fighting tax evasion, and the $1 billion we've invested has enabled us to hire 100 additional people.
I have to remind members that when they make a lot of noise when it isn't their turn to speak, they could be taking the question away from a colleague. The
Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly committed to fighting tax avoidance and abusive evasion. Our results over the past 2 years have shown results. $1 billion invested. This has enabled us to hire 100 additional people, which has enabled us to, in addition, look at 4 jurisdictions each year. The trap is closing.
The question wasn't whether they're spending more money on tax collectors. The question was with regards to the treaty with Barbados. Now, the finance minister, the finance minister said that he would not do any deal, he would not be involved in any matter.
Order. I'd ask the member for New Westminster Burnaby to try to restrain himself. Order. And I don't want to hear that kind of outburst from him again. The honourable member for Carleton has the floor, and I'd invite him to restart his question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question was not whether or not the Liberal government is spending more money on tax collectors. The question was with regard to the 40-year-long tax treaty that has existed with Barbados. We now find that the minister's billion-dollar family business has a subsidiary in that country. He is forbidden by an agreement with the Ethics Commissioner from being involved in any matters affecting that family business. Can the Honourable Minister confirm that the Minister of Finance has absented himself from any matters related to the Barbados tax treaty?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to fighting tax fraudsters and with our international partners and to take legal action. I'm proud of the leadership that we have taken on the international scene. The cooperation between tax administrations, including the exchange of tax information, is an essential tool, Mr. Speaker, for the integrity of Canada's tax system.
The
Honourable Member for Beauce. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Finance claimed that he was listening to entrepreneurs across the country and claimed loudly and clearly that there would be a fair tax reform for all entrepreneurs. But we learned recently that his own family company, Morneau Shepell, is sheltered from tax increases because they've got a subsidiary in Barbados. How can the Minister of Finance justify increasing taxes on plumbers, workers, Canadian entrepreneurs, while at the same time taking steps to ensure that his family... The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our proposals that we put forth to Canadians and on which we held consultations were such that we listened to Canadians from coast to coast, and we've made a commitment to middle-class Canadians for a fairer system. Now, these consultations, Mr. Speaker, are such that we will always be behind our entrepreneurs, middle-class Canadians, and that's why what is guiding the government as we are reviewing and examining what we heard from Canadians is to keep taxes the lowest in the G7, to facilitate life for the entrepreneurs, to ensure that transfers won't hinder them, and we are doing things right, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, tax fairness for the Liberals is taxing and looking for more taxes to tax. And I'm talking about family businesses. Now, if the Liberals were very serious in their proposals, all they would have to do is reopen the tax treaty that Canada signed many years ago with Barbados to ensure that companies pay their fair share of taxes, including companies like Morneau Shepell that are benefiting from that treaty. As my colleague said, when the minister was questioned on the issue, he said, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Morneau Shepell is the baby, and it must pay its fair share. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. In our tax system, there are unfair aspects. Within the system, we want to address those. For example, for some Canadians, the wealthiest, they're encouraged to incorporate to get benefits that most Canadians who are listening to us and who we represent here don't have access to. That's what we want to resolve. We've listened to Canadians across the country and we're going to do things right.
Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians in our cultural industry are furious with the Liberals' deal with the American giant Netflix. Yesterday, the Prime Minister continued to promote this as a good deal. Unless the Prime Minister owns a lot of Netflix shares, it is not a good deal. It disadvantages Canadian companies. It sets a dangerous precedent for other large multinationals that aren't paying their fair share, and 3/4 of the money comes directly from Canadians. How can the Liberal government justify this betrayal of Canadians?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to growing the creative industries. This investment, which is the first of its kind in the world, guarantees at least $500 million in original productions made here in Canada in both official languages. This investment will create jobs and opportunities for creators and producers to make great content to share with Canada and the world. As part of our vision for a Creative Canada, these investments will help ensure that the creative industries remain strong, and we're extremely proud of them.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil Saint-Hubert. I think he thinks we're naive. Mr. Speaker, this special treatment for Netflix isn't going down well in Quebec. Everyone's denouncing it. The National Assembly, the Union des Artistes, and entrepreneurs like Peter Simons, who pointed out that enterprises in Quebec and Canada are doing their fair share. Everyone's denouncing it, yet there's something that's not working. And to quote Gérard Filion, it's like, I think she can't hear us. It's simple. Entrepreneurs are calling for real tax policy. Quebecers are asking for culture. How can the minister be so proud of such a failure? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our commitment to Canada's creative industries is clear. There will be $500 million invested in original productions in both official languages. This investment will create jobs and enable creators and producers to produce content here in Canada and to protect it. Investments will help to ensure that our creative industry remains strong. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, we've learned that the Minister of Finance's family company, Morneau Chappelle, may well have a subsidiary in Barbados. And this is while at the same time as they're putting forth a tax reform that's going to hit our local businesses hard and affect our future. Can the Minister of Finance confirm to the House what his personal links are with this family firm in the Barbados? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to remind the Honourable Member opposite that we will always stand behind our small businesses. We want to keep our tax rate the lowest in the G7 because we acknowledge the importance of SMEs in job creation in this country. We have put forth tax reforms. We have listened to Canadians from sea to sea to sea to do things well, to put greater fairness into our system where it is unfair. Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance promised in writing to the Commissioner of Ethics to abstain from all issues affecting his family business. But today we've learned that Morneau Chappelle registered a subsidiary in Barbados where profits can be sent without paying taxes in Canada. Now, can the Minister of National Revenue open an investigation on the action and the links held by the Minister over his family fortune in this tax haven? And will she shut down that trap and catch the Minister of Finance?
Le gouvernement est fermement.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Our government is very committed to fighting tax evasion and abusive tax avoidance. Our government has invested $1 billion to deal with tax avoidance, and tax evasion. We are on the road to recovering $25 billion, Mr. Speaker. There have been 678 cases transferred for criminal investigation, 268 warrants issued, 78 convictions. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the trap is closing.
Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it was just this July when the Finance Minister was asked about the Barbados being a tax haven and when he threw his "we won't throw out the baby with the bathwater" comment. Literally at the same time, while he was telling entrepreneurs and farmers and small business owners they were going to have to pay upwards of 73% tax, while his baby, Morneau Chappelle, was nicely, safely havened in the Barbados. What this boils down to is absolute hypocrisy on behalf of the government and the finance minister. Why can't he see how unfair this tax grab is?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind the opposition that we were elected on a very clear commitment to defend the middle class, which was neglected for a decade under the previous government. They were so focused on tax relief for the richest people. What we did, Mr. Speaker, was reduce taxes for 9 million Canadians. We have put in place the most progressive benefit for children and will lift 300,000 children out of poverty. We are very proud. We have no lessons to learn from the opposition opposite.
The Minister of Finance refuses to recuse himself from discussions around policy that affects Morneau Shepell. We also know, Mr. Speaker, that any decision that is made at the cabinet level seems to benefit Morneau Shepell. Mr. Speaker, does the Revenue Minister believe that the Minister of Finance, who, by the way, won't tell anybody how many shares he has in Morneau Shepell, that's a big secret, does the Minister of Revenue believe that the Minister of Finance should recuse himself around any discussions around tax havens like those located in Barbados?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is strongly committed to fighting tax evasion and abusive tax avoidance. Our investments, our historic investments, are attest to that, contrary to our colleagues opposite, who, even under a previous Conservative minister, even when he said it wasn't even a priority for them when they were in power, dealing with it, we continue to work. Yes, the jaws of the trap are closing, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians expect nothing less from us.
Member order for Essex.
The fourth round of NAFTA renegotiations start next week in Washington, and the Americans are expected to bring forward their dairy sector demands. After repeated attacks from President Trump on our supply-managed sector, the government has stated that they will protect it. Yet they have never stated clearly and without hesitation that they will not open our dairy market to the U.S. Since the Liberals and Conservatives put our dairy sector on the table in CETA, and it is likely to be part of the secretive TPP-11, will they finally stand up in this House today for dairy farmers and commit to not sacrificing our supply-managed system in NAFTA?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, our government strongly supports Canada dairy farmers and the dairy industry. It's worth reminding people, particularly our American interlocutors, that the United States has a very great surplus in dairy trade with Canada of 5-1, and that is what I do at the negotiating table. We will fiercely defend our national interest at the NAFTA round, and we're going to stand up for our values. Thank you.
Député de Berthier-Masquinongé.
The member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Dairy producers deserve a better answer than that. It's obvious that the United States want more access to our milk market. Supply management simply cannot be put on the negotiating table. Dairy producers must also know that the minister will not grant greater access to our milk market. I will repeat it again. Instead of repeating empty rhetoric, will the minister rise today and promise our industry that supply management and broader access to our milk market are not on the table? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we are here to help our dairy producers and the entire sector. I want to remind everyone that the United States have a surplus in their dairy production, a surplus of 5-1, and that's what I'm going to say at the negotiating table. We will vigorously defend our national interests and remain loyal to Canadian values. Thank you.
With the earpieces, are they working? Let's see if they're working. They're working now. I'd ask the member for Surrey Newton to restart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are seeing the growth of a strong economy and creation of jobs across the country. However, there is still more work to do. In my riding of Surrey Newton, I'm pleased that our government is helping organizations such as Diversity Community Resources Society to help at-risk youth get the support that they need to find and keep good jobs. Can the minister update the House on actions taken to ensure that everyone, including at-risk youth, have the chance to participate in our growing economy?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like
to thank the member from Surrey, Newton, for his question and for his advocacy for the youth of his riding. And as the job market evolves and changes, young Canadians often need that support to get that first good-paying job. And we're investing over $45 million to help over 5,000 youth in British Columbia get the skills that they need. And for example, our investment that helps Pathfinders Youth Centre work with over 300 youth with mental health challenges will mean that they gain skills and confidence along the way and some valuable work experience with it. We'll keep working hard to ensure that all Canadians have the skills they need to prosper. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. High-level officials in the Finance Department have said that they are having trouble finding a solution for the transfer of family businesses from generation to generation. The Prime Minister is ready to do anything to fill the state's coffers, even if that makes life very hard for families that create the country's prosperity. If the Minister of Agriculture does not want to ensure the long-term survival of family farms, we will. When will this Liberal government back away from its plan and defend our farmers? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our government is aware of the importance of farmers for our economy. That is why appropriate measures must be taken. I participated in this file. We've listened to farmers and met representatives from the agricultural sector. I can assure you that we are going to take into account the sector's points of view in our plan going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bridge. Mr. Speaker, Dina and Maurice are farmers in my riding. They've planned for years to pass on the family farm to their son. They have a succession plan detailed and put in place, and they've been saving for this. However, now the Liberal tax changes are actually putting this hugely at risk, and they're thinking they're going to lose everything. Now, their message to the Prime Minister is very simple, and I quote, "Don't do this. It will wreck Canada," end quote. Yesterday, senior officials at Finance Canada said that they are, and I'll quote again, struggling to find another approach to save the family farm. Seems rather questionable. Now, will the Liberals finally admit that they got this all wrong and let go of their crazy plan?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of Finance.
The member, we've consulted Canadians, farmers, fishers from all across the country, from coast to coast, to make sure that we get this right. And one of the guiding principles guiding us as we move forward is we want to make sure that intergenerational transfers of a business or of a farm are not impacted by the changes we've put forward, that farmers can continue to employ and remunerate members of their family as they work on the farm, and this will always be behind family farms and behind our farmers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer Mountain View.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian farmers work hard to feed the world. Many gamble off farm earnings, cash out pensions early, and mortgage heavily to invest in their families' enterprises, and constantly dealing with the volatility and the unpredictability of both markets and Mother Nature. Unlike the Prime Minister and the Finance Ministers, these families can't access million-dollar trust funds. Instead, they continually risk all they have to preserve the family farm. So I ask you, Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals willing to put our generational farms at risk for this cheap tax grab?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question and reassure him that we will always be behind the family farm. We will always be behind our farmers. That is why we want to make sure that they have an environment in which they can succeed and make sure that intergenerational transfers from parents to children when it comes to farms will not be impacted by the changes we're putting forward. All we want, our only target with the proposals that we have put forward to Canadians is to make sure that we have more tax fairness in our system when it is lacking.
Battle River Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, in their desperation to raise revenues, the Liberals are now raising taxes on the family farm. But in addition, it's even worse. Their new tax proposal will make it more expensive for a farmer to sell his land, his farm, to his child or a family member than to a multinational corporation. Most Canadians understand the importance of encouraging the next generation on the farm. Why are the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister so dedicated to protecting their own family fortune and waging a war against the family farm?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned, we will always be behind our farmers. And the concept of the family farm, the model of the family farm, we are proud of it because we know just how much farms contribute to Canada's prosperity. These are the principles that are guiding us as we review the proposals submitted by Canadians from coast to coast. We are going to make sure that our farmers can prosper and make sure that intergenerational transfers are not impacted by the changes we are putting forward, that members of the same family can keep working on a farm, or rather in the same business. We are behind farmers. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the Firestone plant in Woodstock, Ontario announced it will close its doors in 2018 and relocate in the United States, citing global markets. 170 jobs lost, jobs that feed, clothe, and house Canadian families and sustain local communities. One more in a long line of closures that leaves southwestern Ontario gutted with ripple effects that will take generations to repair. And still nothing from this government. Do Liberals even have a plan to prevent such devastating job loss?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. Obviously, our hearts go out to families and workers who are affected by such economic decisions. On our part, Mr. Speaker, as a government, we are trying to build the economy. We have succeeded in creating over 400,000 jobs in the last year. We are working through various ministries, including the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, through regional development agencies, to create jobs, to create long-term employment, to make sure this economy continues to grow on behalf of families and workers in southwestern Ontario.
Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the U.S. filed a second complaint with the WTO against Canada over BC wine sales. This despite the fact that since 1988, the U.S. share for wine sales in Canada has more than doubled, and the Canadian share of the U.S. market hovers just above zero. On top of this, the U.S. is demanding under NAFTA to allow greater access for U.S. wines in all retail channels across Canada. These heavy-handed trade complaints will damage Canada's wine industry. What is the government doing to protect the Canadian wine sector from these attacks?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to remind our American partners that the United States also has measures in place to promote and protect its own wine industry. And American wine already does very well in Canada. In fact, the United States is our largest supplier of imported wines. The U.S. complaints to the WTO are unnecessary. We're going to continue to work closely with the provinces on this issue, and I've discussed it at length with Premier Horgan. We have a united front. We'll always stand with Canadian workers and industry.
Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals across the country are elated today. Their plan to kill the Energy East pipeline has finally worked, but it wasn't easy. First, they set the project back several years by restarting the hearings. Then they changed the rules of the game at halftime, but they persevered, and today they finally got the result that they've always wanted. Energy East is dead. After living his whole life off of the avails of a family fortune created by an oil and gas empire, is the Prime Minister proud of the fact that he's killed this project and the thousands of jobs that go along with it?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
The Honourable Member is right. Some things have changed, and what has changed is that there have been 3 pipelines approved. That has changed the market conditions. What hasn't changed is the regulatory environment that would have governed this entire process, because exactly the same system that was in place that led to the approval of the Enbridge Line 3 replacement and the Trans Mountain expansion would have been in place for Energy East. Things have changed and things haven't changed. Our commitment with the energy sector is unwavering.
Member for Chilliwack Hope. Order.
Mr. Speaker, while Canadian energy workers woke up to the news that the Liberals have killed yet another energy project, Liberals are clinking their champagne glasses and toasting their success at killing the Energy East project. But they're not the only ones celebrating. The dictators and despots from foreign oil capitals who will continue to send thousands of oil tankers to Canada every year have just one message for this Liberal government. Well done, my good and faithful servants. How does it feel to have sold out Canadian energy workers in order to appease foreign oil dictators and Liberal politicians by killing this project?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
as this government has been able to do what the Conservative government couldn't do. For example, 3,000 jobs with the Nova Gas pipeline, 7,000 jobs for Line 3, 15,000 jobs for the Trans Mountain expansion. We support the Keystone XL pipeline, another 6,400 jobs. This is a very significant job creation enhancement as a result of the regulatory practices that this government has accepted. Environmental stewardship, Indigenous engagement, and economic growth. They failed, we succeeded.
The honourable member for Calgary Midnapore.
The news of the devastating cancellation of Energy East means the loss of thousands of jobs and billions of dollars for Canada. After careful consideration, TransCanada came to the same conclusion that this side of the House has known for months. The Liberal government has done everything it can to limit the Canadian energy sector and kill the middle-class jobs that it creates. Will the Prime Minister stop playing political ideological games that are killing the economy and commit to projects that will create jobs for Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, just this morning, the C.D. Howe Institute is quoted as saying that basic economics, not regulation, ended the Energy East pipeline, not regulation. Why is that the case? It's the case because nothing has changed in the regulatory process. The same rules that applied and that led to the approval of billions of dollars of investment in the energy sector, tens of thousands of jobs still existed and would have to the Energy East pipeline.
Honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, on October 25, 2016, this House voted unanimously to provide protection to Yazidi women and children who are escaping genocide by Daesh. In many communities across Canada, such as London, Calgary, Winnipeg, and Toronto, families are being reunited with friends and loved ones. Our government made a commitment to this House to resettle Yazidi women and children and other survivors of Daesh. Can the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship please update all Canadians on the government's progress on this important initiative, which was supported by all members of this House?
Excellent question. Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, j'aimerais...
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore for his question.
This House unanimously voted to bring to safety survivors of Daesh, including Yazidi women and girls, to safety. And today, I'm proud to update this House that almost 800 Yazidi women and girls and other survivors of Daesh have already arrived and have begun the process of rebuilding their lives with the assistance of private sponsors and community groups all across Canada. I continue to be amazed by the generosity and compassion extended to this highly vulnerable group by all Canadians.
Honourable member for Calgary Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, the Energy East pipeline has been cancelled after the Liberals changed the rules for investors mid-process. Thousands of jobs and billions in revenue hinged on Energy East, and those benefits will now evaporate due to the Liberals' mismanagement. The Liberals' failure to champion the energy sector is driving away investment. Will the minister now stop playing politics with this file and start supporting the Canadian energy sector?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, excuse me, playing politics? Whoa. I would be far more comfortable following a regulatory regime that leads to jobs and billions of dollars of investment in the Canadian economy, something that the Harper Conservatives couldn't do for 10 years. And the minister is wrong. The rules did not change, not at the beginning, not in midstream, and not at the end.
Order. Honourable member for Courtenay Alberni. Order.
With respect, the Prime Minister inherited his wealth, and the Finance Minister made millions on Bay Street. Mr. Speaker, it's no wonder Liberals don't understand small business. By not going after big businesses, CEOs and tax havens, the Liberals are broadcasting that small businesses are the beginning and end of unfairness in our tax system. Small businesses feel targeted because they're being targeted. So when will the Liberals take tax fairness seriously and go after the biggest abusers of our tax system?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right now, in our tax system, there's unfairness that is built in. That means some of the wealthiest Canadians are encouraged to use a private corporation to have access to tax advantages that the vast majority of Canadians do not have access to. That is what we are facing. We want to do things right. That's why we consulted Canadians from coast to coast to make sure that we keep a low tax rate for our SMEs, and we will always be behind our entrepreneurs and the growth that they generate. The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, all Montrealers, including the people in my riding of Pierrefonds-Dollard, heard about the summer of 2016 and the seriously long wait times at the Montreal-Trudeau Airport. Airports are key drivers of local economies. It is crucial that they be efficient. Can the Minister of Transport tell Canadians, and more specifically Montrealers, about improvements made at Trudeau Airport? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague for Pierrefonds-Dollard for this question. Like him, we all want to make passengers' experience as pleasant as possible. That is why the Minister of Public Safety, as well as the Montreal-Trudeau Airport, work together to deal with the situation by making improvements and adding resources. I am proud to say that last summer, 375th anniversary of Montreal, we reduced wait times to 10 minutes.
Dare Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, with the Liberals killing Energy East, British Columbia's Trans Mountain is quickly becoming Canada's only option for getting our energy to new markets. But the BC NDP government is doing everything in its power to stop this project, including court action. Unfortunately, the NDP has several allies in this Liberal government, including the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries. Now, Mr. Speaker, approving this project is one thing, getting it built is another. When will the Prime Minister do his job and tell Premier Horgan to back off and ensure that Trans Mountain gets built?
The Minister of Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to remind the member and members of the House why we approved the Trans Mountain expansion. We approved it because of 15,440 jobs, mostly in British Columbia and Alberta. We approved it because of the $1 billion of investment. We approved it because we're not comfortable sending 99% of our oil and gas exports to one country, the United States. We have expanded markets, we have created jobs, and there will be billions of dollars investments. It was a good decision then, and it's a good decision today.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, it is unacceptable for a farmer in Lac-Saint-Jean who wants to sell his farm inexpensively to his daughter to be considered a fraudster. It is unacceptable for a foreign investor to pay half as much in taxes and no tax at all on his investments. It is unacceptable for the government to attack SMEs and refuse to tackle tax havens. Will the government redo its homework and make sure its reform targets fraudsters and real profiteers? The Honourable Minister of National Finance. Mr. Speaker, our government has firmly committed to fighting tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance. We've made historic investments, $1 billion over the last 2 years. That is real proof. That has never been done before, Mr. Speaker. And this is generating results. What we are doing is generating results. $25 million that we are going to reclaim at the international level. 627 cases transferred to criminal investigations, 278 warrants, several convictions, 78 convictions. The jaws of the trap are closing. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, aluminum produced in Lac-Saint-Jean is the cleanest in the world. It's the best quality aluminum. You won't find it elsewhere. This supports 7,000 direct jobs in Lac-Saint-Jean and 30,000 indirect jobs. The locals have reason to be proud. But once again, the laxity of the Liberals towards Donald Trump is threatening aluminum in Lac-Saint-Jean. I ask the minister to solemnly commit to protecting the aluminum industry. Make sure that it's safely protected during negotiations with the Americans. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. I will solemnly commit to defending the interests of the steel sector and every national sector for our economy. Our government will always defend workers in the aluminum and steel sectors. Our government is proud of the aluminum sector and its workers. We will always defend their economic interests and Canadian values, truly.
Opposition House Leader has the usual Thursday question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I would like to ask the Government House Leader if she could tell us what the business is of the rest of the week and next week, or the week when we get back after the Thanksgiving break. I am hoping that, although we've been able to see a lot of... Do you want to get order?
I'm going to ask members to join me by saying shh. And I would invite the Honourable Opposition House Leader to continue, or if she wishes to restart, up to her.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that. I would like to begin by asking the House Leader if she could tell us what the business is of the rest of this week and when we return after the Thanksgiving constituency week. I am hoping that, given that we've been very cooperative over the last 2.5, 3 weeks and seen a lot of government legislation move through, that she would be respectful of some of the bills that we really would like to have ample time to discuss. I know bills like C-48 was shut down basically after we had one speaker, which was disappointing. I'm hoping that moving forward we would be able to press the reset button and that we would be allowed to speak on issues that are